That's right. That's right. Should we do a quick go around and introduce ourselves and just a few words about who you are and what you're doing here and maybe one recent good thing in your life? How about we do Laura and Rachel and then Lacey?
Sure. I was just opening a document because I said I would take minutes.
Thank you.
I don't know. I'm Laura. What am I doing here? I've been on this commission for a while. It's one of my favorite group of people. So here I am. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I know everybody already, but I'm a faculty member in communication at Ohio University, and it's been in Athens about a dozen years.
Great.
And something good in my life, I am about to have fresh bread delivered to my porch by one of my favorite bakers, and I'm kind of excited about it.
Nice. Rachel?
I'm Rachel Siegel. I know many of you. I can't recall exactly how long I've been on the commission, but I've been in Athens for 7 or 8 years, something like that. And I am the co-owner of Rock Griffle Wellness, and I also have a counseling practice called Siegel Transformations, where I see individuals and couples, and I also do some facilitation through that organization. And I've really been enjoying my work with the commission as of late, working with the Athens City Schools in particular. It's been really rewarding. So it's been nice to work on that project. Something good is I got some positive, I guess some negatives that were positive and stuff. And so that's like a relief to me. So that's positive news.
Great. Great. Lacey?
Joke. I'm Lacey Rogers. I am the Assistant Director of United Campus Ministry, and I'm also a counselor at Hopewell Health Centers. I think I've been on the commission for 2-something years. Usually I look to Lauren to ask her, but she has since left us and moved to Vermont and left me on the commission without her. So
Yes.
roughly 2-something years, I think. Yeah.
This will be discussed bitterly for a while yet.
Yes, obligatory comment on that. So, but I think something good is the group that we're meeting with of high school students each week to have the conversations about the race topics has been really great. I'm also planning on going kayaking again in 2 weeks. So that'll be my 3rd time this summer. So
Nice.
just fun to get out in nature and enjoy activities where there can still be people around and it still feels pretty safe.
Great. Rebecca and then Marlene.
Hi, everyone. It says I'm John Schmeeding. I'm not, as most of you know. I think I know almost everyone except maybe Rami and Mike. I'm not sure that we've met before, but I'm Rebecca Robison Miller. I am the Senior Director of Community Relations for the College of Health Sciences, and I'm actually relatively new to the commission. I think I've been on for maybe 6-ish months, maybe 8, something like that. So I'm still learning my place and learning how I can be most beneficial. In terms of good things for me, I'm still really appreciating just the little things in life. And so it would be when I'm able to get outside and all the good food. Been enjoying doing a lot more cooking at home and that kind of thing. So those are very small things that I appreciate very much.
Good. Marlene, we're just introducing ourselves a bit and sharing something good from our recent life.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marlene de la Cruz Guzman. Marlene de la Cruz Guzman works too. I am the director of UMSAR at the university, work within the Division of Diversity and Inclusion. Let's see, I've been on the commission for at least 2 years. I don't know either, Lacey. It's been a while. We're just happy to follow John and do all his work. So
none of us know.
No, it's a good thing, right? When we love it that much, we don't know. So I've been enjoying the time with family. We've taken on some kind of silly tasks like planning future vacations, like everyone's dream vacation, and kind of fleshing them out and just kind of trying to think of all the positive positive things that we will be able to do, right?
Someday.
While also enjoying just the outdoors, sitting outside and being able to work from home, whereas normally this time of year, as Micah knows, we're indoors a lot, right? Getting a lot of the planning done for the year. And right now I get to most of the time sit outside and work. So it's been rather good.
Good.
And I'm going to mute myself most of the time because I know I have a loud fan going. So
Okay.
I know that it creates this buzz back.
Okay, thanks. So those are the people who are currently on the commission, plus Vanessa Morgan, who is, she thought she might be able to figure it out to get here, but it wasn't a very good time for her. So, and Micah, Dawn, and Ramey are here visiting with some interest in joining the commission, or at least finding out more about what we do. So perhaps the three of you could introduce yourselves as well. Micah?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be joining you virtually. My name is Micah McCary and use he, him, his pronouns. I'm the director of our Ohio University LGBT Center and a former ACRC member. I think that term would have been maybe 2004 to 7 during my undergraduate days here. And I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces. I agree with a lot of what my dear colleague Marlene said about the benefits of working from home. And in particular, I have enjoyed my adult Star Trek coloring book with colored pencils recently.
That sounds wonderful. Something just went a little bizarre with our sound. Why don't you say that last piece again?
Just clarifying that's the thing, because the adult ones make it challenging, lots of interesting detail, and colored pencils.
Micah, your audio is really strange. It's like extra loud and echoey. Maybe you can check your settings or see if something changed.
It was fine until that last bit. So we'll come
Your
back to you.
computer audio does not like Star Trek, apparently. And
right.
now we're in big trouble. Yeah,
Once you said Star Trek, we moved into another dimension there. Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
What you said with your face, Micah, what you said with your face was that it's an adult coloring book. So we hear you.
Yeah. Dawn and Ramey?
I'm Ramey McCarrow, and I arrived in Athens in the fall of 1995, taught at Ohio U School of Communication Studies till 2015. I've been retired since then, and I'm a potential member. I do agree with the mission of this particular commission, and we'll see how it plays out. But I appreciate the opportunity to visit today.
Great. You want to share a small good thing from your recent life?
Well, best thing is we're both still here.
That's a good thing, yeah.
Pandemic and surviving as best we can. And I've been able to get some of my own private work, professional work done. I'm still professionally active as a researcher and scholar, wannabe. So I continue to play in that world.
Great.
Modest as ever, Dr. McCarrow.
Yeah. Dawn?
Hi, I'm Dawn McCarthy. In work life, I work for the Wayne National Forest as public relations officer. I've been working on the Bailey's Trail system for the past few years. I am hoping that my big brown dog, who was just barking viciously, doesn't do that anymore. Let's see. So what am I doing here? I am interested in learning more about the Athens Community Relations Commission. And one good thing, I finally have a porch swing after wanting one for 15 years. So I've been sitting outside a lot, even though it's hot.
Congratulations. Yeah. Okay. Well, oh, that's exciting. Well, why don't we jump in and go through our agenda, and I will simply encourage Ramey and Dawn and Micah to ask questions and make noise. And Micah, obviously, you know how the commission functions, but you don't know what we've been up to lately. So please let us know if you have questions or input. One of the primary things we want to do with the meeting is help the three of you get a sense of whether this seems like a good fit. So since we're being more official than we sometimes are, perhaps we should approve the minutes from the last official meeting we had. We met in March, and we had an informal meeting in April where we pulled together a letter to the editor that we sent in. But I sent out the minutes from March. Did anybody have any worries about those, or can we simply approve them? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So done. So it seems like part of what we could do is do some quick updates on a couple of the projects we've been doing. Lacey and Laura, do you want to talk a little bit about the student group that you've been involved with? So, and just the background is a long period of time of developing a relationship with Tom Gibbs, the superintendent of schools, and Laura and I and Tammy Tucker and a young woman named Cabo did a workshop for their leadership team, and that eventually resulted in the work we're doing with them this summer. So what would you want to say to help people get a little picture of the student discussion groups, Lacey?
Just that we've been having a weekly Zoom meeting, which I'm personally impressed by the willingness of middle and high school students to have an additional Zoom meeting and to specifically come together to talk about, topics related to race. So I'm happy to see that that's something that they care enough to make time for. And I think a lot of the students are bringing a lot of personal experiences that they're able to share and kind of learn whatever information we send them from videos or different things to read and kind of applying it to their own lives. Definitely like listening to the things that we have to share with them and learning from each other. But I'm also really excited to kind of see what comes of all of this, because I think a lot of them, we had our meeting today, and I think today left a lot of people like really energized and excited to do something after we finish this 8 weeks of planned activity. It wasn't like we're going to automatically end after 8 weeks, but there wasn't an official after 8 weeks, this is what we are going to do. But it sounds like they've definitely got some ideas and energy surrounding what they would like to see happen next.
Great. Laura, you want to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll add real quickly. We have about 10 to 12 kids who are in the group, and they range from like just starting middle school to high school seniors. And that's been a little kind of tricky sometimes. The kids are pretty different places in their engagement with these ideas already and sort of their ability to articulate their thoughts and stuff. But they've done really well. And we're keeping a good record of our like weekly agendas. So if we needed to replicate something like this, we would know like what it is that we did. But we really started by doing more kind of individual work, thinking about like, what does it mean when we say, identity and who we are and how are we connected to groups? And then we moved into thinking a little bit about like kind of the interpersonal dynamics about race and racism. And so thinking about implicit bias and microaggressions. And today, our meeting, Lacey talked about it. I was really I was pumped up by the end of it. We just gave them this kind of hypothetical scenario. You're a student in the high school and you see this thing happen between a teacher and a couple of students. And then let's just talk through like what's going on here. Is this a microaggression? Is bias going on? What are your options as a student bystander? What should you do or could you do? What would you want to know more about? And they basically just talked about that for the entire hour. And then as we were getting close to the end, they really, I thought, just opened up and said like, well, how do we really make change? Like, what can we really do in the world? And, how can we move on and things like this? And so they want to, we've been chatting on Thursdays as a facilitation team to figure out like what we're going to do the next week. So we'll meet in a couple of days to kind of process it, but it was a really powerful conversation today, I thought. And they definitely have a desire to continue on in some sort of like club at the school or something like this. And they, at least some of them really want to like if I am going to be a student activist, if I'm going to make change in the world, what should I do? How should I do that? And it seems so big. Where should I focus my energy? These are the kinds of questions they're asking, which are just amazing questions. They're awesome questions. I mean, one student today asked a question like, why is it that people tend to trust folks who look like them and not people who don't look like them? Like, that was the question. I was like, okay, so there's these whole branches of scholarship that try to answer that question. We can just kind of think about it a little bit, but things like that. So it's just, I don't know, I'm really getting a lot out of it. And I think it's really good for the students, even though it's a small group.
Great.
Yeah. Can I add one little thing that I want to put a bug in your ear about, John?
Please.
One of the
Don't have enough bugs.
Well, I know you have so many things, but one of the things that the students, and Lacey, I think this is fair to say, as this is not like, breaking confidentiality, but one of the things the students said was, if I saw a teacher doing something that I thought was racist, that would be kind of hard to deal with as a student. And so I would want to go to another teacher or somebody else and ask them to help as an ally. And we were like, this seems reasonable. And we talked about that as a strategy. And then I asked them, when you think about your experience in school, do you have a teacher or other adult who you think you could go to and who could serve in that role? And it was crickets. They could not think of anybody. Eventually, they maybe thought of one or two people. But for the most part, they were really like, no, I don't think so. And I think that's really important for the teachers and the administrators to hear, that the students are not. Yeah. And I mean, of course, this isn't all students or whatever, but
sure.
There's a gap there. They were like, well, I don't know, maybe teachers would want to support other teachers. They might not want to hear students complain. And I don't know, maybe things aren't going to really change. And I'm not sure who to ask. And
yeah.
There's a parallel process going on with the teachers too. So that's really interesting, Laura.
Yeah, that's why I was like, we need to share that in this. I was like, if we don't do anything else from these conversations, if we can bridge that would be huge. So, we told the students, like, we're doing these things with teachers, and there are a number of teachers who are learning about anti-racist work and wanting to be those teachers that you would go to. And, we'll see what we can do about making those connections.
Yeah, nice. Rachel, you want to share a little bit about your experience?
Yeah, so I'm facilitating, it's a good segue, probably one of the groups of teachers for Athens City Schools. So I think there's 9 of us in the group total, with a co-facilitator as well, and I think it's been really positive. We've gotten positive feedback from the participants. We're using the book stamped as so it's a book club, but not really sticking. We often reference the book, but usually conversations with the teachers where the energy pulls us is really around applying some concepts and like figuring out how they can use some of the things that they're learning in their classrooms with students, families, and in the organization. That's sort of where the energy seems to be going for them. There is some discussion also about like, what does continue? One of the questions that have been brought up that I wanted to bring to this meeting today came up. I wasn't able to be there the last meeting, so I had a sub, but the one project, the teachers had some this around really feeling like it would be helpful, or wondering if the Community Relations Commission could kind of serve an ongoing role, or like be able to advocate to administration on behalf of. I think there was some energy around the power dynamics and how not being certain about how to talk about administration or change things without a lot of repercussions. And so maybe there is a role for us as a commission to gather some feedback and some some amount of like comments or concerns or needs, or what are they doing well? What is needed, and to be in a role of being able to give that information to the administration without these folks having to personalize it in a way that feels compromising. I also am hearing from the teachers that they're really doing a lot of like internal kind of work, reckoning with the ways in which the practices that they've done may have been kind of racist without knowing that they were or the distinction between intention versus impact. I'm just kind of hearing a lot about that too. And then also the need to really be educated about other perspectives in history that are outside of a very typical heteronormative white perspective on history, and the teachers themselves not feeling like they have enough education around that, other perspectives to provide that to the students in the way that they would really like to.
Yeah.
So those are the big things, but overall really positive. Also, they want to do some project. They're compiling a Google document that we started, I think, week 1 or 2 with like resources as people are coming across them for teachers. And then they have hopes of doing some other kind of a project and would like to be in support of one another moving forward, and would like to see it expand to more teachers.
Yeah, great.
Rachel, do you think that they would be willing to share that Google Doc with those of us who are working with the students? Or maybe when they're done with it or something? I'd really like to see it. I mean, we've been putting together a doc just for ourselves, like, oh, here's a video that the kids might like, and here's a place that has activities and resources. But I would imagine there's some overlap.
Yeah.
And it might be nice to share some of that.
Yeah. I think we could do that. And I think it would be really of benefit to them to see yours too. So maybe we can talk about sharing.
One of the things we might do is have students start to like share those things and gather. Because we have some students who are like very active on social media, participating in Black Lives Matter marches and things like this. And we have other students who are very much like, I'm just here to learn. I'm not really sure. And I just kind of want to listen. Right. So there's lots of, there's a big developmental range in our group too, just in terms of where people are with like racial identity and anti-racist identity and that as well.
So overall, there are 6 of those book clubs, and 3 of them are all Athens City School teachers. So that's the biggest group. And then there are 3 that are a mix of some community people. Somebody from Alexander schools got wind of what we were doing. So 4 of them showed up. Well, they didn't show up, but 4 of them asked to join and want to know how they can do this at Alexander schools. And 2 of the people who are in our community group are the principal and vice and assistant principal of the high school. And we put them in the community group so the teachers could have their conversations without having their bosses in the room. So, and we have, I think 8 of us who are serving as facilitators in one way or another, either with book clubs or with student groups. We had a couple of graduate students who weren't able to continue, so we're down to 8. We started with 10, but it's a pretty fabulous group of facilitators. So there's about 70 people involved in this project all told. So, and I think all the book clubs are having, very different experiences, but along the same trajectory that Rachel's talking about, where people are very excited. We do spend less and less time talking about the book, but the book is good. The book, highlights a lot of things. So it's pretty useful.
Looks like Vanessa is here.
Oh, Vanessa, hello.
Hello, hi.
We're glad to hear your voice, if not see you.
I'll be there soon.
Oh, good. Oh, good. You'll be able to see who all else is here too. So great.
Working on it.
Oh, so we are in week 6, and that means that needs to be a fair amount of thought and attention to both how we might collaborate between and among book clubs, and also with the student group, and where do we go from here? People signed up for 8 weeks, and the assumption wasn't that's the end of the road, but we don't really know what the road looks like after that, especially since school is getting ready to start. So that'll change people's schedules. And I should mention that the Athens Friends Meeting and Athens Area Mediation Service are involved in supporting the project, and the Athens City Schools put some money in, as did the Athens Friends Meeting, to support the project. So I'm wondering who's got questions or comments or worries or, any reactions to that. Just jump in. Or shall we move along? Yeah, Lacey.
So a couple of things just from what was said. I would be happy, as I'm guessing Laura and Brandon probably would, if we think it would be helpful, to ask the students if they would feel comfortable with us sort of taking a summary of some of the things that they said and bringing that and having a meeting with the teachers, whichever teachers would like to be involved, sort of having, like I said, that crossover conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one idea I'm seeing. A second idea might be some sort of opportunity for some sort of crossover mentorish thing where we pair a student with a teacher, kind of a thing, if that would be appropriate. I don't know rules for things like that, if that would be or not, but maybe something along those lines.
Yeah.
And my third thing is that it might be, I don't know where we're at with numbers and how many we're allowed to have, but I think it might be worth revisiting if we might want to see if one or two of at least the kids might be interested in being on the commission.
Mm-hmm.
As a way to continue to connect them to people that care about these subjects and would like to keep getting more knowledge and feeling more connected to be able to do that.
That's great.
That's a really interesting idea. Even if it was, we created like a particular role for that, that was like a student member or something like that, so that they didn't have like this official commitment and whatever. But I think it's a great idea.
Could they be like a youth ambassador?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So they're kind of adjunct, but not, they're not like responsible. Yeah. I love that idea.
great.
I will say some of these kids, they're right on par with or beyond some of my college students in the way that they're able to share their ideas and reflect on what's going on for them. Like it's really interesting to work with these kids.
Great. It's great.
Yeah.
In the same vein,
Vanessa.
Hey, Vanessa. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, John.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Nice to
Rebecca.
see you all.
Nice to see you.
Hi.
A lot of the work of the commission has been centered around work in the schools. And so I'm wondering maybe even if a representative from the school district might even make sense to pull in to continue these conversations and continue to kind of be as responsive as possible. I also had a question. I could have just missed this somehow, but the teachers that are currently involved, did they volunteer or were they asked to participate, or how did that kind of
They all
formulate?
volunteered. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Volunteered.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Micah, Ramey, Dawn, anything you want to ask about or throw into the pot?
Not right now, in my case. But I really appreciate all the work that's been done, because there's a lot of time involved in all of these conversations with both students and teachers.
Yeah.
But trying to get the teachers to identify or self-identify themselves in classes as being willing to be consulted and talked to is going to be a difficult process.
Yeah. That's a great idea. Dawn, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, so I would agree that it has been a lot of time and commitment that you've put in, and I'm curious if, while the book discussions are fresh in their minds, if there might be some way. So I heard talking about maybe a mentorship program, but also, getting teachers and students to think of some type of agreements that they could commit to over the year, not hard and fast, but to help them remember throughout the year what they've learned through the books and ways that they could change their actions so that they do lessen their impacts.
Great idea. Micah, anything you want to add?
All of that sounds okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. I was only curious about whether there is anything more to the reporting at this time, like if there have been any things in the press that perhaps I've missed about these initiatives, or kind of how the work is being shared with, I guess, the broader community.
I don't think it has really. We haven't done any of that really. I don't think.
We're all just working.
Yeah, that's our usual style, right? Oh, that's right. We could publicize.
Hey, we're supposed to say what we're doing.
That's right. What a concept. I think that might be an appropriate thing here as we're winding up to have something for the early fall that just describes some of what we've been doing.
Yeah, write a summary.
Yeah.
It occurs to me we didn't mention that we have 2 high school students acting as interns for this project as too. Yeah. And they've been at all of our weekly meetings with the high school students, and they've been very active in the planning and in the discussion. I know that they've also been engaged to some extent with the book club discussions, although it's not clear to me exactly what their role has been there. But having them do some sort of draft of a write-up might be a good project for them as a culminating project.
Yeah, they could interview some people and get quotes from people about what's been useful and powerful.
One of the things they did was make an Instagram page. It's like AHS Racial Equity Group or something like this. And so they post little announcements about our meetings. And like we talked about microaggressions, we had them watch this video about, people being bitten by mosquitoes and, microaggressions being like mosquito bites. And they shared that on the Instagram page, and the students have the ability to direct message us through Instagram, and our interns keep that up and stuff. So they've been an important part of our project too.
Yeah.
Want to mention that.
I would like to just suggest that maybe each of the groups sort of, that we collaborate with them, that they write their own summary of how they've experienced the group, and to summarize it rather than us doing it for them. I would really like to, as much as possible, allow people to self-describe how they view the summary of this experience, and then maybe us to collect that and compile it. I don't know how people feel about that, but that feels more like authentic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Cool. So maybe I'll say just a few words about the conversations with the Fair Board about the Confederate flag. Probably most of you know that the Athens County Fair has allowed vendors to sell the Confederate flag, and we started last year. Just this little ad hoc group. It's not exactly a project of the commission, but we keep talking about it and supporting it. Last year, we really didn't get much of anywhere other than a few of us went and talked to the Fair Board a few times, and they kind of dumped it on their membership to decide, which we've come to learn is not really legally their role. And the membership voted resoundingly to continue this Confederate flag, but they were asked to vote without getting a whole lot of information or leadership. So we've been back to them this year when the fair about 6 weeks ago said, yes, we are going to have a fair. And 3 of us met with some Fair Board folks to discuss that last week. And really, probably all I should say is we are making progress, but the decision has been made. There will be no fair this year. So I think we've had some really good open conversations, and I think we are making progress. But because there's no fair, there's no decision. So that work will continue into the fall and winter for next year. Anybody else have projects to report on? I think those are the main things we've been engaged with. We had decided about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago even, that we would continue to, we would try to focus our efforts on the schools. And it took us a little while to figure out what that might look like, but suddenly that has taken off, and that is a lot of what we're doing. So one thing we could do next is talk about ideas and plans for this fall and summer. And the other thing I'd like to do is see if the people who are here who aren't currently members have thoughts and questions about what we're doing and what your role might be and things like that. So how about the first of those first? Who's got ideas about what you would like to see us doing the rest of this fall and into next year?
This is a quick brainstorm, but I wonder if we would be able to support in some way, like a consultation group or something, like some kind of ongoing facilitation in some fashion or form that like these participants who we've been working with this whole time could utilize that in sort of an ongoing way, even if it was just periodically, just to continue to create a space.
Mm-hmm.
For people to utilize each other as support and consultation as they're moving through things that come up. I don't know what that would look like exactly. It's just an idea that had come from the work.
When you're saying consultation, are you thinking of something where teachers or students would come and say, here's a situation I'm trying to deal with and help me think about it?
Yeah.
That kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Maybe I'll just call on people because on Zoom it gets a little weird. I know whose turn it is. So how about you, Rebecca? And ideas, and this can be simply a brainstorm about things you'd like to see us do this fall and next year.
One thing that we had talked about, I think in the spring or maybe earlier, sometime in winter before COVID, was the opportunity to have some follow-up community discussions. One was in regard to the arrest in the fall, I believe, on Court Street.
Mm-hmm.
There had been a community discussion, and we talked about partnering with JPAC to do another one. And I think, again, we just kind of ran out of time, and COVID happened, and maybe not ran out of time, but that COVID happened and it didn't materialize. And a lot has happened since then.
Yeah.
And so
the world has changed.
Yeah. And so I don't know if that makes sense to go back to that or to go back to JPAC around doing something around that. But that might make sense for this group to focus on. Also, another thought is that if we now have this virtual platform to use as a resource, it could help us in some engagement around some community conversations as well. I know that the meetings at the libraries have gone well, but if we want to continue to do something, and at this point, it seems likely that a virtual format will be the safest way to do that, at least for the fall. Maybe we could plan some things. I was logging on when Scott was saying that. I mean, I think Zoom can have up to 300 people on it or something like that. So just a thought there, if there's some things that we want to assess or survey, or maybe there's a specific topic that we put out there for people to just open up conversation around.
Yeah, great. Marlene, you want to add anything? Some ideas?
Yeah, and as you were talking about that, I was thinking about how to tie in the student groups. For instance, it might be really interesting for the community to hear from the students that are willing to partake in a workshop where they share what they've learned and what kinds of things they've talked about, and spark that thought, right, more widely from that perspective. And it could be a real tie-in. So I love that idea.
Great. Lovely. Lacey?
My dog is choosing to bark right now, so.
Shall we come back to you?
No.
Okay.
I think I already mentioned a couple of different ideas I had. The only other thing I might add is maybe doing something again geared towards international students, since that's been another kind of topic brought up recently in terms of ways to support the international community here.
Yeah.
Creating more of a sense of community, within our community for students. I don't have a specific idea, just another population to think about.
Yeah. Vanessa?
I think Lacey just touched on what I also wanted to talk about on how we can include like international students in the conversation. And when we're talking about race, how we can have like maybe conversations about international students who are also Black, but they're not from America. What is their experience and how is that different from those who are here? So maybe exposing some of our students to the different types of Black people around the world, that would also be a good conversation to have.
Yeah. Great. And there are it just occurs to me, there are a number of international families who have, sons and daughters in the school system as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. Laura?
I've been kind of back and forth between taking minutes and paying attention to my own thoughts here, but I think that we should continue to partner with the Racial Equity Coalition of Athens, which it kind of goes up and down in terms of its like membership and activity level and stuff, but they're planning on doing a groundwater training through the Racial Equity Coalition or Institute out of North Carolina, and then also bringing in more of those sort of phase 1 training and more sort of facilitator training dealing with racial equity. So I think that our group and that group should continue to collaborate and stay in touch with each other with whatever that means for these projects.
Great.
I guess the other thing I feel like what's that, Rachel?
How do we do that? Are we doing that?
Yeah.
Ish.
Sort of. Sort of. I mean, it's the Racial Equity Coalition is like this whole, it's like representatives from a whole bunch of different groups, but I think it's kind of open
I know that
to anybody, right?
My co-facilitator's on it, and we've talked about it, but I'm like, we don't have any formalized way of doing that.
Yeah. Laura and I are on it too. So that's.
Oh, okay. So yes, we do.
Yeah.
We have some overlap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the second thing that I think we really need to be responsive to this historical moment around Black Lives Matter. And I know we've done some work with that in terms of making statements and being part of these activist groups. And, but I feel like if there are, I don't know what I feel like we need to do, but I think this is an important moment for us to continue to be present and be part of these conversations and be there,
Yeah. Yeah, this is great. I'll just say that in all my conversations with Tom Gibbs, the superintendent of schools, the assumption was that this work will continue, that we weren't simply doing these 8 weeks of meetings and that was that. And none of that's all a little nebulous because what's happening with the schools is a little nebulous, and he's pretty overwhelmed with. Micah, anything you want to add or complain about? Or Micah's a famous complainer.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to drop a question in the chat, and I'm wondering if I was hoping to get a few different perspectives from current members, as I've heard folks recount different things they've been involved with over the past year. I've heard a lot of themes related to diversity and inclusion, and I was just curious about individual perceptions of like what percentage of your work feels driven by diversity and inclusion as members over the past year. I guess I mean your work as an individual committee member. So I imagine some of that's taken up by time spent in meetings. Some of it might be like facilitating some groups I've heard, participating in book clubs, but anything that you do as a member of ACRC, I'm over the last year, I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing. I feel like that's all for me, that's the driving force. I mean, diversity inclusion is like, that's a particular language around it, but that's why we're here.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yep. That's what
I don't think we're doing anything else.
Yeah. We're open to suggestions, but we'll have this diversity and inclusion and oppression thing wrapped up in the next few weeks. So
I guess we do share, there's like a percentage of time which you just experience where we share something personally positive every once in a while, but that's about it.
yeah.
Thank you so much. That's really clarifying in a different way than just knowing my memory that it was a big part of the mission, but to know your individual perceptions of where your time seems to go. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Ramy, anything you want to add or ask? Or
3 things. First, I appreciate the work you've initiated with the Fair Board on the Confederacy issue. They're between a rock and a hard place in terms of having already had a vote that was 80-20 against any ban. But I'd like to see this group continue to pressure them while the conversation is fairly new with some members. I know the chair, if he was quoted accurately, seemed to be dismissive in terms of, we had a vote, it's over. And so there's nothing to talk about. And I think that's probably not quite the case. So I'd like to see that pressure continued. Secondly, and I think Micah would know about the sensitivity of this issue, is not only are there racial questions in the high school, but there are also LGBTQ questions and concerns in the high school in particular. It's a more difficult subject to broach and to create a group of individuals willing to converse about it. But that's something that might be something new to explore, at least in terms of what's the best way to approach that issue and what are the issues that are involved currently.
yeah, and I'll just throw in that Lacey has been organizing and leading a project exactly in that direction.
Okay,
Called PRISM at the high school, even predating what we've been doing.
And
And I know you want to get to your third, but just on this, Ramy, I actually think their schools are doing a little bit of a better job with that than they are with race.
that's
Like there's a QSA that a bunch of kids belong to. They have adapted this sort of, use the bathroom that you believe fits with your gender identity. And, they're not like strictly requiring kids to only use particular bathrooms. They had Theo Hutchinson come in and do some training with teachers at the high school about transgender issues. They've made gender neutral bathrooms at the middle school. So I think there's actually a little bit of work being done there that maybe not people who aren't like engaged in the schools might not know about or see.
Yeah, I've not been engaged for a long time. My son is 49.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the third thing was simply a recommendation. The template that you developed for the in February for the city council would be the kind of a summary report, would be a good starting point for a more general article to the news or the messenger about what the group has been doing and what it plans to do. Both of those organizations, in terms of their own reporting, do a very, very poor job of seeking out this kind of information for whatever reason. So that, and I've noticed that with regard to the work being done by the city council, you never really see much of that work being reported with respect to even their meetings and the minutes of their meetings being summarized somewhere by someone from those organizations. So doing it ourselves, if you will, or yourselves, if you will, is an important objective to simply letting the people know out in the community that the Community Relations Committee exists, and it might then generate more comment and concerns directed to you about issues that we don't necessarily see.
Yeah. Good thinking. Great. Anybody have a last thing to throw in? I know folks will need to go. Lacey, yay. Quickly, I'm going to propose that, I'm going to propose that we try to meet 4 weeks from today at this time. So I'll send around an email, but it seems like actually we're all here, which is sort of extraordinary. And maybe we can put that in. I know we won't use stone, but something a little more permanent than our usual seat of the pants thing.
So that would be August 18th.
Yeah. at 4 o'clock. So,
Yeah.
and I guess my suggestion is that Dawn and Micah and Ramey, let's at least have an email discussion in the next day or so and think more about your interest, and we can go from there.
Okay.
I know that City Council would love to, for us, they keep reminding me to tell them who all is going to be on the commission by July 30th. So if we know what we're doing in the next few days, that would be handy.
Okay. Very good.
Micah, I think some of the stuff that you and I and others talked about in terms of a diversity dialogue work going on potentially at OU could fit really well with the stuff that we're doing at the schools. I think there's a real clear connection there, and the schools could maybe even be a partner in that if that ended up being something that your office decides to pursue.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing everything, everyone.
I mean, we've certainly done some things. Everything you do in this town obviously includes some OU people, but it feels like we've now got a much deeper foothold with community people and school people than we've had before. So now to redevelop that university connection seems like a good thing. Right? Well,
I wanted to say thank you all so much for those of you who are doing that work. It sounds like it's been very rewarding, but it takes a lot of time and planning. And so thank you so much. It's really important work, and please pass on thanks to the other folks that are working on it as well. And the students, of course.
we shall. Thanks, everybody. Any final words?
Go team.
Yeah, go team.
Thank you.
Coloring.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks for
everybody.
including me.
Appreciate it, everybody.